History will remember Joe Biden as the man who defeated Donald Trump and then paved the way for his return. I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. That observation comes from a front-page story in today's New York Times. Monday's the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump. The polling data tells us an interesting story about this moment in time. A new CNN poll shows that President Biden's job approval as he leaves Washington stands at 36%. That's the lowest approval rating for any president at the end of his first term. 61% of Americans see the Biden presidency overall as a failure, with only 38% saying it was a success. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's transition approval rating sits at 55%, which according to Gallup far exceeds his first term, where Trump's average approval rating was 41%. Then there's the category of favorability, which is more a measure of a person's feelings rather than job performance. CNN's poll shows that Biden's favorability is at 33%. Trump has a 46% favorable, a 48% unfavorable rating. And even though Trump is underwater by a hair, he's never had a higher favorability than he enjoys right now. So the president-elect's popularity exceeds that of President Biden, whether measured by job approval or favorability. I don't view these two trends independently. I see a causal connection between them. I think that Donald Trump is benefiting from a comparison to Joe Biden, and that Trump's numbers arguably would not be as high if it weren't for that comparison. That's a measure that will fade in time as Trump takes office and has a record of his own during his second term. But here's someone from whom President Biden can take solace. The late Jimmy Carter, the 39th president, began his term, according to Gallup, with a 66% job approval. Then followed several tumultuous events. The Panama Canal deal, bad. The Camp David peace accords, good. The Iranian hostage situation, bad. The tanking of the economy and rising gas prices, even worse. Things got so bad for President Carter during his term in office that people have forgotten that Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy challenged him for the Democratic nomination. Carter beat back that challenge, but not before Kennedy won the states of New York, Connecticut, California, and New Jersey. Carter, of course, then went on to lose in a landslide to Ronald Reagan. According to Gallup, in December, before Carter left office, he had only a 34% approval rating. And Carter's average approval while in office, it was higher at 46%. Here's the silver lining, perhaps, for Biden. When in 2023 Americans were asked retrospectively whether they approved of Jimmy Carter as president, 57% said yes. And I'm sure that number would be even higher today given the outpouring of emotion after his recent passing. Then again, there's that front page story in today's Times detailing how 6 people close to President Biden, including the First Lady, protected him and worked in concert to mask his frailties. According to the Times, they recognized his limitations to a greater extent than they publicly acknowledged. But the story now emerging is also a reflection of the stubbornness and the unwillingness of President Biden to accept a reality we will all face. And by the time of the disastrous debate, it was arguably too late. So maybe the passage of time will not boost his legacy the way that it did for Jimmy Carter, as more of these revelations are coming to light. I want to know what you think. Go to my website at Smerconish.com. Answer today's poll question. Will opinion of Joe Biden's presidency improve with the passage of time? As I said, perhaps one reason for the president's unpopularity is the way in which he's exiting after that ill-fated campaign which featured the disastrous debate performance. New reporting from the New York Times and a forthcoming book is shedding new light on what went on behind the scenes as senior Democrats, including then Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and former President Barack Obama, tried to gracefully convince the president that he could not win re-election and needed to step aside. Joining me now is Annie Carney, who, along with her Times colleague Luke Broadwater, are about to publish Madhouse: How Donald Trump, MAGA Mean Girls, a former used car salesman, a Florida Nepo baby, and a man with rats in his walls broke Congress. Wow, what a subtitle for the book. I can't wait to read it. So, Annie, among the tidbits that you've already dropped, you've got former President Obama, and I'll put it up on the screen so that people can read it, essentially saying, I'm the wrong guy. I can't go to Biden, President Biden, and talk him off the ledge because our relationship is too fragile. Please expand on that.
Yeah, so during this very horrible period for Democrats last summer after the debate, President Obama, Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries were really talking to each other and really to no one else. Nancy Pelosi was sort of doing her own thing. She was no longer in a leadership position. She was doing things more publicly. But these three men kept their cards very close to the vest, said nothing publicly, but privately were kind of trying to game out, how do we get to the result that we want, which is that Joe Biden steps aside. And in this moment, Obama recognized that his relationship with Joe Biden was fragile, that if he were to go to the president and say, I think you should end your reelection campaign, it wouldn't be received well. It would probably make Joe Biden dig in more. And that was what they were all kind of trying to triangulate around and make sure that wasn't what happened if he felt that if he got his back up. They knew this was a stubborn person, the commander in chief. These conversations are awkward. And so Obama said to Schumer, like, you may be a better messenger for this message. They all agreed that the message was, we urge you not to run.
Here's something else that I think speaks to the depth of the concern among Democratic leaders, and I'll put this on the screen. It pertains to Jack Reed, the senator from Rhode Island. Quote, the usually quiet Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island, a West Point graduate and former paratrooper, said he could no longer support his commander-in-chief unless Mr. Biden could produce 2 neurologists to issue a public report saying he was fit to serve and then hold a news conference where anyone could ask questions. When I read what you wrote with your colleague, that graph, I said to myself, it's not just a perception issue. It's not just that Democrats were saying there's a perception among the public that he's too old. They had concerns of their own, such that Reed was saying, I need neurologists to weigh in.
Right, and I think it's stunning that not one neurologist he wanted 2. I mean, he really had concerns, and probably this was kind of a statement that he knew would not be fulfilled, i.e. he's saying that he doesn't think this can go on. And someone like Jack Reed, this is a West Point graduate, this is a chain of command sort of person, a stunning statement for him to express to his colleagues such concern about the commander-in-chief. And this was kind of the basic feeling in the Senate. They were probably no more than 5 senators who thought that Joe Biden should continue. And during these weeks when Chuck Schumer was trying to figure out what to do, he had to work really hard to hold people back from going public with their concerns. If you remember that summer, a lot more House members were publicly calling on Joe Biden to step aside. The Senate was giving him a little more time. But again, these kind of statements from Reed and others, they weren't giving him time because they believed in him. They were giving him time to gracefully exit on something akin to his own terms.
Meanwhile, the junior senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, says to his colleagues, hey, grow a spine and stand with Joe Biden. And for that, he gets scolded by Schumer. Explain.
So this happened in this meeting that Schumer had to demand of the White House Palace Guard to come meet with the senators, and they didn't want to. But he said, if you guys don't come here and meet with us, I can't hold them back any longer. You'll have 40-something senators signing a letter tomorrow calling on Joe Biden to drop out. So they come to the Hill. They meet with the Senate Democratic caucus. This is where Reed makes that statement. There is so much anger, and Fetterman stands up and says, you have to be with Joe. If you don't, you have no spine. I think Chris Coons and John Fetterman were kind of the 2 only pro-Biden voices in that meeting. And Schumer pulled Fetterman aside later and said, you can always express your opinions, but never say that your colleagues don't have a spine. It's not good for you, and it's not productive for them. Just don't say that. I mean, I think this is like, yeah.
I feel let down. I feel let down by the aforementioned individuals who were having this conversation privately and telling the citizenry nothing of the sort. It's a twofold question. And secondly, while I'm thrilled that you've published this and I can't wait to read your book and read it all, why now? Like, not to you specifically, but to the media writ large? Where was the media in not reporting all of this sooner?
Well, there was a lot of reporting at the time. First of all, this Schumer meeting that I'm reporting on here, let's remember what day this happened. A few hours after he leaves the Rehoboth Beach House, Trump got shot. So there was a lot going on at that time. And we did know that Schumer met with Biden, and we knew that we didn't know the details of the conversation. But at the time, we report, Chuck Schumer was publicly saying, I'm with Joe. So the benefits of writing a book are, it's for history. It's not coming out till later, and people will have more frank conversations with you when they know that it will come out after the actual event that is happening in real time has passed. So I would have loved to have published this last summer, but the interviews that I conducted for the book were not available to be published then. Sometimes people will share with you things for later.
Not in the excerpt that we've published, and I'm going to read it all and hope you'll come back. What did the vice president know, and when did she know it?
It's not clear she was in these conversations. She was not part of it was Obama, Jeffries, and Schumer, Nancy Pelosi freelancing, but it was those three who really only talked to each other. They kept it very tight. And in my reporting, I never heard that Harris was part of any of these conversations.
Annie, when you come back, you have to explain the whole subtitle of the book.
Yes, happy to.
Very intriguing. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it, and I look forward to reading it all.